Hey, welcome everyone. We've got a guest here in the studio today. Alliance members, thank you so much for what you do. And this session is another one really dealing with recovery, since so much of what we do is trying to help clients who are using substances, abusing substances, and it's not helping their overall situation. And so we're doing a series of trainings that are helping us understand what's going on, but also make us aware of resources and skills to help us do what we do better. And so I've got in a studio with us today. We've got Paula and Russell. And so Russell, how did y'all meet? Because I've been pretty excited to know, Paula, that you were coming to the studio and talk with you. But y'all have known each other for a little while now.
Yeah, like almost 2 years.
Yeah, I think it's been about 2 years.
So the first time I met Miss Paula, we was at a leadership conference, and I remember we was at the table and we had to share our stories or share stuff about us, and everybody was like, "No, you go first. You go first. You go first." But eventually they came around to me, and I told a little bit. I can't remember what I shared, but I shared, and everybody was like,
Right.
Yeah.
Powerful story.
"Yeah." So that's how we met.
Okay. And Paula, you're a nurse, been involved in healthcare for a while.
Yeah, just a few years. Just a few, about 30 actually.
But also you have a foundation and you're involved in several other organizations around recovery here. But you want to just kind of give us an overview of what you're passionate about?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I am a registered nurse, and currently I'm at Arkansas Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I work with the medical directors there. But I have a foundation called the Parker Gill Foundation. I started that in 2019, and that all happened because I lost my son, Parker Gill, to an opioid-related overdose in 2018.
Sorry.
Thank you. August 2018. And when he passed away, so he was on a ventilator in the hospital, and I was able to spend some time with him before he actually passed away. But when I was faced with the fact that I was going to lose my son, I made a choice at that time to actually accept what I was being given. I knew I could accept it or rebel. It could either take me down or I could use that experience. And so I chose to accept what I was given and to praise God in that moment and ask him what he wanted me to do. And it was all about what could I do to glorify God in that situation. And so an opportunity came around. Someone wanted to help do something for Parker, and so we decided to start a foundation. And for me, recovery was where I wanted to go. Prevention first. If you can prevent it, prevent addiction, then you don't have to worry about the recovery. But if you're either prevent it or you're in recovery, if you don't do one of those two things, death is a big possibility, and we found that out with my son.
Especially with opioids.
Right, with opioids. Fentanyl is out there, carfentanil. And
What is carfentanil? I'm not familiar with that.
it is a stronger synthetic heroin. It's even stronger than fentanyl. And so just a tiny, tiny, tiny bit will kill someone. And so my passion was for recovery because my son struggled so much in his recovery. He first went to treatment when he was 17 and did well, graduated that program, came back home and graduated high school. He kept up with his credits while he was in recovery and in treatment, graduated, got a job, and then he relapsed. And he did that 2 or 3 different times. He tried several different types of treatment. He tried medication-assisted treatment at UAMS with Dr. Mancino. He did real well on that, but he ended up tapering himself off because he wanted to go work somewhere where they did not have a medication-assisted treatment nearby. And so he thought he was doing well enough. He didn't listen to Mama, the nurse, who told him that was not a good idea, and he was adult at that time. And so he tried that, and then he also went into residential treatment 2 other times. But he struggled really badly with his addiction, and it weighed him down. I saw him just I saw him cry numerous times, and he was weighed down with the magnitude of his disease. He didn't yet have the tools to fight it. He tried so hard. He'd go to treatment, and when he was in recovery, they're in treatment or living in recovery housing, clean, not using. He was so happy. I saw him weighed down with the stigma of the disease, and that's another thing that I work. Anytime I get a chance to speak, I want to talk about that because I want everyone to see the person struggling with addiction as a person.
Yeah.
It is a person that was just like me or you, who happens to have a disease of addiction, and he didn't want it any more than anyone else, and he tried everything he could to fight it. But he was also in some recovery housing when he would get out, and in the recovery housing, it wasn't well supervised, and so for me, quality recovery housing when someone gets out of treatment is very, very important. And so as a foundation, we do whatever we can to support that.
And so let's talk about your foundation. What are the goals of the foundation?
Oh, the goals are to save lives. We want to save lives from overdose. That's our big goal.
And how do you do that?
And how we do that. We support prevention efforts. So if there's we want to get into the schools. We want to do any type of prevention activities, but we also support recovery activities because in recovery, as Jimmy McGill always says, if you're not having fun in recovery, you're not doing it right. And so we like to support activities, recovery activities. We support recovery housing. We are partnered with Next Step Recovery Housing, which is Jimmy McGill's recovery housing, and we support them.
And Jimmy here in the state, he really he's the head of the peer program here in the state, and I've
state of Arkansas,
known
yes.
Jimmy for several years,
Yes.
and he's a wonderful spokesperson for
Yeah.
for recovery and for peers.
Absolutely. But we also want to support parents, families, because the state doesn't right now have an organized family peer program. And so when you have a parent that is faced with the fact that their child is struggling with addiction, they don't, we as parents don't know what to do normally. And it's hard to find a treatment. It's hard to find treatment for them to go to. And so we want to be that person. So there's several different mothers throughout the state of Arkansas, Stacey James, Gina Algair, Kathy McConnell, who was on one of these. And we are there to help people. So you can go to our website, contact us, look us up on Facebook.
What is the website?
It is www.parkergillfoundation.org.
Okay.
And you'll put that out there, I hope.
We will. We'll put
Okay.
those links in the.
That's important, man. Because like a mother that has multiple kids, you just got one that's struggling with addiction. You'll mess around and neglect the other kids, and focus on that one kid
You get
and not know how to balance it.
you get right. It just becomes all consuming.
Yeah.
And so, and being able to find housing is so important. In fact, Russell helped. I got called from a pastor friend of mine from in the Delta of Arkansas, who was trying to help a member of his church whose child was struggling, and they were looking. We need them out of the environment, but into, some housing that could help. And was at a loss,
Right.
really for. I just don't want to Google it because I don't know how to get in. I don't know if they're any good, and so we were able to connect him, the pastor, with Russell, and Russell, real quick through some contacts, we're able to open up a spot pretty quickly. But if you don't have that, now this is a resource, and specifically for family members or for helpers that are helping, mom or dad or a loved one. Husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, their loved ones dealing with this. They're trying to figure it all out while the crisis is erupting.
Crisis is happening.
And that's very difficult.
I remember I first started dealing with a loved one, a family member with an addiction in about 2007, 2008. This was before Parker. And I remember just going crazy all around town. I went to the church. I went to Wolf Street. I went everywhere I could find, counselors, doctors. And there just wasn't anyone that could fix my kid, right, or fix my family member. And someone said, you've got to get help yourself. And that's what I did. So I went to Al-Anon in 2008, and boy, that was a game changer.
Did it help?
Yes. I didn't know I was sick. The first time that I heard that, I was like, wait. And this is, I get this all the time from parents. When I say the first thing you need to do is get yourself some help, and here's where I would go, here's some places, and they look at me offended sometimes, and that's how I was. Like, no.
Miss Kathy.
I'm okay.
I'm okay. I don't have the problem.
I think Miss Kathy, while she was here, a month ago,
Right.
she said the same thing when she was trying to help her son. She talked to the counselor, and the counselor told her the same thing.
But it changed my life. Life. And I was then able to help that family member. And then I was more prepared when Parker developed his addiction. I knew what to expect. Plus, I'm a nurse. I'm a researcher. I love to research. And so I had already researched about the disease. And so I was really prepared when Parker, if you could ever be prepared, But I still didn't know what to do. It was very difficult to find treatment for someone under the age of 18 in Arkansas, which to this day, it is still very difficult to find treatment for someone that's a minor.
So what would you recommend to a family member? What would be kind of the step? So you said first you need to make sure that you're well.
Right.
And so they would go about doing that. They could hit the website,
Yes.
your foundation website, and you would help them with that.
Right. I keep listing of Al-Anon meetings, Celebrate Recovery meetings. There's a new group called PALS. It's Parents of Addicted Loved Ones. And there's about 3 now in our state.
Where did that come from?
I'm not sure.
Did that come out of Hot Springs?
I honestly,
Okay.
I don't know, but I know some people who have started one.
I met a gentleman who's
Cersei Beebe.
in Hot Springs. He had a son. I think it was a son who had struggled, and they were wanting to start something. I'll check on that.
Okay, yeah.
It may have started there.
I have not been to a PALS meeting, but I do know some people that have started it and go to that. So, if in that area, if you're in BB, I can send you there. Churches, reach out
So
to
tell
your
me,
church.
tell me, pals, again, where are the locations that they're?
I knew you were going to say that. I know that there's one up in BB and Cersei, and I don't know where the other ones are. In that area of the state, I know there's one, but there are 3, and Hot Springs may be one. I don't know. I have it at home.
We'll do a search and put the link in.
That'd be
in the
good.
post.
Yeah. So there's Al-Anon, Celebrate Recovery, PALS. New Life Church has Regen. Regen, it's a program there that they have for members with codependency and addictions, whatever your issue is. So there are lots of different options now. But first, get help for you. If there is a crisis and your child needs, or your family member, it could be a spouse or a sister, brother, whatever, needs treatment right away, detoxification, there's detox places they can go to, and then there's other treatments. And so it's really hard to navigate that. And so that's what we like to do. I was on the phone the other day. Someone had a daughter, an adult child, and I called around and found 2 different places with beds. So they had options, insurance and then faith-based. And they were able to then talk to their family member, their child, and say, here is what we have to offer, and that's important to be prepared before that conversation happens, because a lot of times you can't make them go, but you can say, I can't support you any longer, but here's what I have to offer you, and I want to walk along beside you. And in Al-Anon, I learned to detach with love, and I learned to see my family member or child as a person and love them, but not enable them. And so with Parker, when he died, he knew how much his mom loved him, and he knew that I was along beside him every step of the way. I was not going to make it easy for him to use, but he always knew I loved him, and that's important. And so often you feel like the person that is using is doing it to you. You're offended because they keep doing this to you.
You know, I've heard family members actually communicate just that.
I can't believe they're doing this to me.
Yeah.
And it's not personal. It's they have a disease that they would rather not have, and they would rather not be doing this. Parker said, Mom, with tears in his eyes, I just want to be that son, brother, uncle that you all deserve. And, I would just see him crying about that. I knew he didn't want that. And people struggling with addiction would do anything to be able to be that person that they know they are and they want to be, but they can't. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but that's very important. And so I try to help the parent to see that too. So when they go to their child who is in a crisis situation and needs help, they're better prepared.
You know, what you said, I think, is so important because, while you're watching a loved one go through this, there is a point where you start to withdraw. You just can't be stolen from anymore. They can't disrupt the rest of the family. Can't. And so, but the loss is very real. And to do that into a way, I would just say, if you're helping someone and a family member's reaching out to you or you have a loved one, then please, go to this foundation, the Parker Gill Foundation, and get some help so that as you engage, you've got support and you've got some skill, but also that you do that well where you feel like, what you said is your son always knew that you loved him. He never felt like you didn't love him. And so there was never this, but you had drawn boundaries and then you had options that you would provide him. I think that's so important because you can't fix it for a person.
Right.
But you can engage in a way that is right and good and
Healthy
and healthy
for both parties. That's the most important thing.
Can we talk about detox real quick? You had talked about detox resources. So if someone is actively using, especially if they're using large amounts of alcohol or opioids, there is a withdrawal effect, and so you need some help.
Professional detoxification help. Yeah.
And so cold turkey is not really safe at this point.
A lot of times it's not. I have seen, I have been with my son while he was detoxing, but a lot of times it is good to be in, it's the best scenario is to go to a place where they can help you detox and then get into treatment. Because what happens is once you start detoxing, you want to use to stop the detox. So if you're not in a detox
It's
situation,
not a pleasant experience.
No, it's not a pleasant experience at all. I've not experienced it, but watching my son, I can say it's not pleasant because I don't want to make that clear. I've not experienced it, but so I don't know that, but I've seen him. And so when he started detoxing, you obviously want to go use again to stop it, right? And so if you're wanting to go to treatment, you can go to a detox center here in Arkansas, or we have several different ones. Baptist has detox. Natural State Recovery Centers has detox. Serenity Park has detox. And Bradford Health, St. Vincent's Bradford Health has detox. There's probably more. There's one in Searcy. But that's just, it's safer. It's healthier for the individual, and then you can move from that situation into a residential
It's a much
treatment.
more natural move, I
Yeah.
would imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so if we were talking about loved ones, kind of once again, is there any advice that either of you would kind of recommend to someone whose family member is currently using? Any skills and maybe the intervention? You had said earlier that, have a plan, just don't. move into it in a spontaneous moment. But how would you recommend someone approach someone in what would classically maybe be thought of as an intervention?
Well, I want to mention the family members, and this is a little bit before the intervention, but the family members, when they're faced with someone in their family using denial, you hear of denial with a person with addiction. They go through a stage where they deny that they have an addiction. Well, the family member can deny as well, and the family member will pick up on things. I can tell you personally, I knew in my heart and in my head, I'm a nurse, I knew way before my heart and my brain was going to let me admit it that my son was actually had an addiction. And so the best thing to do when you see those signs is to face it with them, face it with others. And
what would be some of those signs, Paula?
Dropping grades, changing of friends, detaching from family, staying in the room all the time, stealing, finding things missing with no explanation.
The disconnect.
Yeah.
Yeah, all kids love mom, and we're always in her face, mom this, mom that, mom that. And when that slowly starts to, disconnect, I think that's a big thing. And moms know when their kid is not their kid.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
When the relationship's changed.
Yeah.
Lying starts.
Yeah.
And you will, a parent can deny and make sense of all of these lies.
Yeah.
This lie comes and you're like, oh, okay. You're believing it, knowing all along your child's not, because you're faced with something that is going to be serious. Plus, the stigma, once again, keeps a parent from wanting to face this. Oh, there's the shame and the guilt. I must be a bad parent because my son is bad. Addiction is not a moral failing. It's a disease. And yeah, there were things that I did wrong as a parent, but that was not my fault. I have to take my piece of the rug, my piece of it, and own that, just like my son and other family members do. But society stigmatizes the disease still to this day. It's a little better because everyone's talking about it. But
society.
Uneducated society does.
Put that label on you, your family, your kid.
Yeah, there still seems to be some moral judgment around that because of behaviors, folks in stealing and those types of things. And so would it be, for both of y'all, so if you've got a loved one who's suffering, then one is prepare yourself. So you need to get some skill yourself. Go get some game, and they can contact y'all for connection to help. Then you need to prepare for kind of this interaction.
And that involves setting boundaries, healthy boundaries, for you. 'Cause you definitely don't want to be following your son or daughter around the next dope house and trying to get them out of a dope house, and it be a dangerous situation and you end up getting hurt, So I think that's a major thing. And then love, that's they need that the most at that time. They need it more than anything.
So drawing a boundary, but also offering, I'm always here, but setting the kind of the rules for.
My mom told me when I was going through it, she said, I can't do nothing else for you, but if you're hungry, I'll feed you. All that other stuff, I can't do none of that
I'm
stuff.
going to give you money to go get food,
Nothing.
but I'm going to give you food. Right?
Yeah, I'll feed you.
Yeah, most definitely. So, yes, get your self-help. Prepare yourself. Get a game plan and face it. So you have to face it with yourself and then face it with him or her, the family member. And set the boundary and say, here's what I'm willing to do, and stick with it. There you go.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks so much for coming and being with us today. We're going to put the links for the help down in this post, and hopefully there will be someone there that's going through it, and they won't have to go through it alone.
All right.
Well, thanks so much for making the introduction, and Paula,
Thank
thanks so much
you.
for
Thanks for having
what you
me.
do and for being here today.
All right.
Thanks.
Glad to be here.